Yeah, yeah, yeah. And welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's John, his name's Andy.
Gets me every time.
We're going down, 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 if that's the only way, to make this cruel, cruel world hear what we gotta say. Put the right letters together and make a better day. Yeah, yeah, yeah. More on that later. But first, Andy, you've got a track for us to listen to. Tell us all about it.
All right, let me do just that. The band that we're going to check out today is a band called Title Fight, and the track by them is a track called Dizzy. So, Title Fight, I know, is pretty vanilla when it comes to some of the names I've hurled at you lately.
It's better than most, I have to say that. You know?
I was going to say. Say something about this one. But yeah, go off and give Title Fight's Dizzy a go and come back. Let me know what you think.
Okay. It's a nice, pleasant opening. It lends more than a smidgen to early The Cure, Mr. Robert Smith. Just got a really pleasant tone to the guitars as well. So there's one doing that main sort of strumming, and then the second one joined in was kind of picking notes. And then we had this interesting bit at the end of each sort of bar where there's this one quite twangy note bending. Bang. Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, I don't know what it's doing. That it's strange that it seems a little bit out of place compared to the other two guitars, and the bass is just chunking along and sort of rumbling away, doing its thing very simply. Sounds really pleasant though. Yeah, just as I expected. The vocals, then they come. What's the phrase? Wetter than an otter's pocket. But totally appropriate. Is exactly what I expected. So sort of weak, ineffectual, slightly overshadowed by the guitars, and it's one of those ones where you keep listening because you get the odd syllable and you think, I am going to understand this. You never do. So we'll see how we get on. Okay, I'm writing down the odd words here and there, but it looks like just someone's thrown up a bunch of word salad. I think I've got the memory loss, definitely in dizzy thoughts. At one point, I think I heard Black Decker, which can't be right. But yeah, it's nice enough. The actual main guitar is really hypnotic, sort of soothing and trance-like. They're really clean. There's just a touch of reverb on them, so it sort of comes from that sort of indie guitar, almost going into dream poppy type thing. This sounds British inspired or late 80s. Yeah. Yeah, it's very pleasant to listen to. It seems to have finished, but there's still a bit of timestamp, so I'll just let it run on for a bit. But that is interesting. From when he stopped singing, they sort of jammed it out to the end. It started getting more and more twangy, sounded more and more sort of American rather than British. And then when they sort of dropped out one by one towards the end, it kind of, particularly when the guitars dropped out, so it's just the rhythm section. And then the guitar does a little accents over the top. It did remind me strongly of 40 by U2, where they used to do that at the end of their shows, and then they'd leave the stage one by one. How long to sing this song? Indeed. Right, let's see if there's any more. Otherwise, we're going back to Andy. Hello. That just seemed to cut out just then as it was getting interesting. I think I'm not sure if that's any relation to the song. It's like part of the sequencing into the next track on the album. Kind of sounds like that, doesn't it? It's interesting nonsense. Right, we need to find out more about this. Dizzy by Title Fight. Let's go back and chop it with Andy.
All right, so you are back. Hopefully you've got your bearings, not too dizzy. What did you make of this track?
Okay, so I think it's just the way the video's put together, but the song opens immediately. And I'm struck from the first couple of seconds how very 80s this sounds. I'll be more precise. Late 80s. I'll be more precise than that. Autumn, late 80s. Soggy leaves and dog shit on the ground, moisture in the air, watery sun in the sky, and disappointment on the pavement. I'll be more precise than that. Late 80s, autumnal day in Britain, in the park, round the back from the technical college. In fact, I'll go further than that. I'll say that this sound is a sound made by a first-year geology student when they finally pluck up the courage to ask the objects of their affections and desires for a couple of pints of white lightning, only to spot them out of a misty, spudgy-like window seat, across the road, disappearing with Neil, who's doing politics, into the darkness of an ABC cinema to see a viewing of Look Who's Talking. This is a musical equivalent of the sigh that escapes from our protagonists before they return back to their student house share to a Vesta curry and an episode of Challenge Annika. To give a kind of vague example of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Roundabout.
the song starts off, and the guitars are pretty clean, actually. Very nice. It's that tonal quality, and it's just, I mean, honestly, it's two squares down in the hopscotch chart of the Cure's career. Opening section, more than a nod to Mr. Smith's universe, and I'm very happy to be in it. So one guitar strumming away quite nicely, while the bass rides along underneath, grumbling, and the second guitar starts to pick some nice sort of notes. And at the end of each bar at this point, there's a really interesting note bend from something, it sounds like from another guitar or something else. And it's a totally separate tone. It's got a touch more reverb than the others. And it's sort of just popping up at the end and sort of bending. It's like glimpsing over a neighbour's fence to see a sausage dog and a trampoline, but you're only getting the top bit of it, which just comes over the fence. That's what it's like, honestly. So we have standard drumming, pretty simple. We've got a nice sort of groove to the whole thing. And then we get a nice sort of cymbal splash to introduce the vocals. And they are, of course, spot on. I believe the phase is wetter than an otter's pocket. Very weak, kind of a bit overpowered by the guitars and fairly unintelligible, I have to say. But they do this trick of sporadically offering you the occasional recognizable syllable. And it's that small glimmer of hope that pulls you along, thinking it's only a matter of time before I catch enough to make sense of it. These are very foolish thoughts. So the first verse was seemingly clearer to me than the others. And I caught car, when happened, swear to God, that bit was clear. Sadness, dizzy thought, memory loss. Fair enough. It rolls along really pleasantly and has a kind of hypnotic touch to it and its nature. I kind of almost like gently tumbling clouds in the sky that you're watching laying on your back, or rolling waves on a beachhead. So yeah, I found myself sort of mentally kind of, up in a hammock again. We said this before recently, and yeah, really enjoying it without not anything very taxing. It's slightly change angles now and again, but it's all very much just comfortable and pleasant and keeping you there. I'm really enjoying it. Next verse, not so successful in discerning what he's saying. I've got nighttime and summer. Anyway, so the next, honest, that's all I got. My part in the next verse started to fill in the gaps, and I don't think it did it very successfully, because I got, will you loan your Black and Decker, get it from the trunk, started recall, and then dizzy thought, memory lost, because I know that bit's a killer and bang on there. And then we get again something about your nighttime of summer or something like that. So anyway, he stopped singing at that point and they kind of jam. So it's a really pleasant mixture of what I would describe as kind of almost a wistful indie, with some early dream pop as well. But the musical accents suggest USA rather than a bedsit in Croydon. Particularly when he stops singing, they start to jam out from like about 240 onwards. A little stateside twang starts to creep into the music, just a feel of it. It's really nice. I'm really liking it, and its simplicity as well. And there's a lovely bit, again, very simple, where it just drops out the guitar, so you've just got the rhythm section going. And then one of the guitars does a little bit of sort of axle work at the top, and I got strong The Edge vibes there. And then I was thinking, hang on a minute, this reminds me of U2 when they used to do 40 at the end of each one of their gigs. how long to sing this song. And one by one, they'd leave the stage. So you're left with like rhythm and bass, and then
Right.
just, and so bass and drums, and then just the drums. Yeah, so finally, Larry Mullins Jr., whoever it is on drums, gives the final hits around 3:30 and all is finished. Or is it? Because there's still nearly a minute to go on the timestamp. And then slowly, like a pensioner on a moped, the scratchy ball of sonic fussing rises from the fade. And it's quite interesting, actually, these various. And just as it's all starting to get quite exciting, there's a power cut and the shutters come down quicker than a peep show at Soho, I imagine. Um,
Of course.
I'm guessing that was the way this thing where it started and finished. It's the sequencing of the album.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting to hear that a little bit, which I suspect has nothing to do with this song and more to do with what's following. But it was interesting. So yeah, all in all, this had a really nice vibe to it. I in particular really like the tone of the guitars. Really pleasant. And it was that sort of hypnotic, rolling,
Yeah.
soothing quality. And it strikes me now the conversation that we had not too long ago about another song is going to repeat itself here in terms of musical genres. But I'll let you get into that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
enjoy this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you're right. This is wildly apropos that you would have just given me sort of this very early version of English shoegaze. And here we are, fast forwarding a few decades, couple decades, ahead of, in time to America and hear what is now being classified as American shoegaze. But go on.
It's the difference between when they first created the orcs in the first Lord of the Rings film, and now the TV series where they can talk and worship and all that. This is the
Yeah.
difference between them.
Yes. They're related, but very, very different. So yeah, Title Fight. They're an American rock band from Kingston, Pennsylvania, formed in 2003. And it's fair to, probably also worth noting, I'll go into this a little bit further. They didn't start out with this sound. They changed their sound and evolved and grew older and matured or just shifted tastes maybe in sounds.
Mm.
So yeah, they've been labeled as a lot of things. Oddly, a lot like how you described the telescopes designations of sounds, because they've changed so much and have been around for so long. They didn't just
Yeah.
stick to one thing, as you rightly put. So yeah, their style has been described as post-hardcore, hardcore punk, melodic hardcore, punk rock, shoegaze, soft grunge, and post rock. Formed as a hardcore band, they soon began to draw influences from a variety of other genres, such as alternative rock, shoegaze, and post rock. Title Fight formed as a three-piece band consisting of Jamie Roden on guitar and vocals, Ned Russin on bass, and Ned's twin brother Ben on drums, playing local shows in Kingston and Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Their name came from the cover of an old HBO Showtime guide that Ned had read in the attic when he was younger. In addition to popular punk bands, Roden claims the Positive Numbers Fest, an annual hardcore punk music festival in Wilkes-Barre, was an influence to the band's formation and their sound. The band produced a demo titled Down for the Count in 2003. In 2005, the band added Shane Morin on second guitar and recorded two more demos in 2005 and 6, during which they played shows for what they call a small tight-knit community around the Kingston area. On October 16th of 2008, it was announced that the band had signed to Run for Cover Records. The band recorded a 7-inch The Last Thing You Forget in December of 2008 at the Getaway Group in Massachusetts with Jay Maz. It was released in June of 2009 on their new label. It featured 3 new songs, while the CD version of the release featured all of their releases to date at this point. During this time, the band began to alter their sound to a more melodic hardcore oriented style, with influences such as Jawbreaker, Seaweed, Lifetime, Knapsack, and The Promise Ring. In 2010, Title Fight was featured on the Triple B Records compilation America's Hardcore with a song titled Dreamcatchers. They also toured the US with Bayside, Senses Fail, and Balance and Composure, as well as Japan with H2O. On January 19th of 2011, Title Fight signed to Side 1 Dummy Records and announced that they had finished recording their debut full-length album, Shed. The band also embarked on their first headline tour in 2011 with the Menzingers, Touche Amore, Dead End Path, and Shock Ones. The band released their new album Shed on May 3rd, 2011. Title Fight toured Australia for the first time in September of 2011 alongside the aforementioned Touche Amore, followed by a 22-date European tour in November and December. The band also played both dates of Reading and Leeds Festival earlier in the year. But just by the by, have you ever heard of Touche Amore or any of their stuff?
The name rings a really faint bell, but I don't think I've heard any of that stuff. I've heard the name.
Okay, that's fair. And understandable. I might have to fish around and come up with a track or two to bring in the future. They're a pretty interesting band too. Um, Title Fight announced via Tumblr in July 2012 that their next album, Floral Green, would come out on September 18th, and its lead single, Head in the Ceiling Fan, was released as a free download. On August 14th, the band premiered another song, Sympathy, on NPR Music's All Songs Considered program. Floral Green debuted at number 69. Nice. On the Billboard 200 on October 19th, 2012. Title Fight hosted a record release show in Warrior Run, Pennsylvania, along with the Menzingers, Tiger Jaw, Gypsy, and Grazine, prior to the headlining of a U.S. tour with supporting acts like Tiger Jaw, Pianos Become the Teeth, Were, Young Beats, and Single Mothers. Title Fight released the four-song EP Spring Songs on November 12th, 2013 through Revolution Records. In July of 2014, the band announced on their Instagram account that they had signed to Anti and were in the process of recording a new album. On December 1st, the band announced that their new album would be called Hyperview and was set to be released on February 3rd of 2015. The track that we listened to today, Dizzy, features on this album. And Zoe Camp of Pitchfork would review the album and in doing so wrote the following: When labels become irrelevant, then so do the expectations associated with them. And it's from this precipice that Title Fight leap into hyperview, propelled forwards by disarming self-awareness and generous use of the whammy bar. Title Fight have referred explicitly to the album as a work of guitar music, and the effects-driven fretwork is the record's most distinguishing trait, especially given the absence of the double-time drumming and the in-your-face bass parts that dominated the band's preceding album. So there you have it in a little snippet, kind of this allusion to their evolution in sound and their move from that hardcore sound to this more melodic kind of sound or experimental sound. Um, New Noise Magazine's Armando Olivas wrote the following of the album and the evolution. Musically, they've stepped beyond hardcore music, which is more than okay with me. If you can make the jump, then why not go for it? I'm not sure what you would classify the new sound as, but I like it. I've seen the phrase shoegaze being thrown around a lot, but to be honest, I hate that description. The name alone sounds as if the music is so boring that you unwillingly zone out just by the mere sound of it, which isn't the case here. Title Fight stopped touring in 2016 only playing a few select shows that year and in 2017, while headlining Outbreak Festival in the UK on April 29th, 2017. In what would end up being the band's second to last show before going inactive, vocalist Ned Rusin said, "If this is it, it's been a wild, beautiful ride. Thank you so much. We're Title Fight. See you on the other side." The band's final show was a benefit concert for their friend Aaron Warman, held on January 26, 2018, at the Revolution Bar and Music Hall in Amityville, New York, with Turnstile, more on them to come, opening for them. So let's jump into these lyrics that you didn't catch much of, and I can't say that I blame you. Shirt was in the car when it happened. Swear to God we're cursed with all this sadness. I'm dizzy in the thought. Memory loss. Your chrysalis, nighttime wanderer. Venom drip. King of somber. Fumble on a road. Blackened backyard. Weapon from a trunk. Static recall. I'm dizzy in the thought. Memory loss. Your chrysalis, nighttime wanderer. Venom drip. King of somber. Slow like my fist. Underwater. Blended light. Sharpener. So, probably not a lot to extrapolate from those lyrics. Almost kind of like just stream of consciousness words. Um, but the lyrics reflect feelings of confusion, sadness, and even memory loss. The song begins with a reference to a shirt being left in a car when something happened, which introduces this theme of loss and perhaps even death. The following line, "Swear to God we're cursed with all this sadness," suggests that the singer is grappling with a painful situation or history that they feel is beyond their control. The chorus, "I'm dizzy in the thought, memory loss," further emphasizes the idea that the singer is struggling to make sense of their experiences and may be enduring cognitive difficulties related to trauma or grief. The lines, "Your chrysalis, nighttime wanderer, venom drip, king of somber," conjure images of transformation, darkness, toxicity, and melancholy, which suggests the singer is processing trauma, loss, and even some kind of personal metamorphosis. The song, in a more macro sense, is about the loss of a loved one in an automobile accident. So, in February of this year, staff writer Danielle Chalosky of Stereogum published an article celebrating 10 years of Hyperview and signed off her article with this short but sentimental paragraph I thought I had to, kind of wedge in here at the end. At the end of the day, Title Fight did what every band hopes to do. They left behind a perfect discography and continue to have a singular, admirable legacy. I would love to hear what the new Title Fight would even sound like, or be in an ardent crowd of Title Fight worshippers thrashing their bodies around again. But if that never happens, I'll live. I was lucky enough to experience it once. So yeah, at this juncture, it would appear that the fate of the band is still kind of unknown. They haven't formally said that they've broken up. They haven't formally said that they're on a hiatus. The closest you got was that little line from the band member who said, if this is it, it's been a blast. See you on the other side. Pretty vague. I know that there are people to this day that really love this music, that do like pilgrimages to Wilkes-Barre, PA, where there's this giant mural to the band in the city of Wilkes-Barre, where they go and sort of like pay homage and take photographs and all that stuff, hoping and waiting for another album to be announced and produced. I don't know if that will ever happen. But this is a really great album. It's probably my favorite of the big three that they did, probably because, much like I mentioned way back when we did Pianos Become the Teeth, which at that point had almost this uh, post-hardcore, new wavy indie sound injected into it that made it, for my ears, and I think probably yours as well, more palatable than their earlier stuff would have been. That's a lot what Hyperview was to Title Fight. This, I don't know, this more educated, mature sound, that might be unfair, but that's how I sort of ingested it and enjoyed it. So, but regardless, I'm glad you gave this track a go and that you really enjoyed it. I knew that it would have bits and pieces that you would probably gravitate toward. And honestly, I can't think of a better choice to follow up from what you just brought to the channel in the telescopes, to kind of like bookend and really underscore the discussion that we've had in now both these videos
Yeah,
of this idea of how a genre or subgenre can grow and go so many different places.
yeah, it's great to hear the difference between sort of um, Neanderthal to Homo erectus.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which, and I don't even want that. Your point is well made. I just don't want that to sound to anyone in the listening audience as a pejorative against the telescopes and early shoegaze music. You have to start for something, and the bravest, most pioneering people are often the ones that produce that Neanderthal sound. They crawl so that guys 30 years later in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania can run. You know what I mean? So hats off to them and bands akin to them who kind of pioneered that sound. And I'm super happy that bands like this take the baton at some point in their career and kind of run with it. So yeah, really lovely little 2 episode exchange we had here and how they accidentally tied in together. But yeah, thanks so much for giving this a listen, John. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track, Dizzy by Title Fight. If there are other tracks by these guys that we should check out, I've heard a lot of the stuff, but John hasn't. So please feel free to drop it down in the comments field below. We will add it to our ever-growing list for our Friday viewer suggestion episodes. Or if you have any other act, maybe akin to this or having nothing to do with this, feel free again to drop them down in the below, and we'll do the same, go through the same process, add them to the list, and they will appear on the channel in sometime in the future. Also, please think about liking, sharing, and or subscribing to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything but a couple clicks and a couple seconds. No monetary exchange involved, but it really does help us over here at the channel, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you so much giving any of that your consideration. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next episode of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.